Howdy, this is
Episode 74, Astonishing Truth, Gaara's Identity Emerges.
Episode 74 opens with Team Pakkun vaulting through the trees. It's made clear from the blurred lines on the top and bottom margins of the screen that the team is going full speed ahead towards Sasuke. That is, until Pakkun picks up another scent. Despite the gravity of the situation, Studio Pierrot still weaved in some of that good old classic slapstick humor. Naruto is a kid's show after all, so props to Studio Pierrot for adding additional comedic relief. Returning to Pakkun the Serious, he informs Naruto and Sakura that Sasuke and two of the Sense are moving away from the two stationary Sense. Using his honed ninja hound nose, Pakkun detects the two stationary individuals are about to fight. Since a fight is about to break out, Pakkun wants to take a detour to avoid getting caught up in it. That's actually a smart idea. They don't have any idea who the two ninja are, but trying to nonchalantly jump through the middle of a fight will more than likely end up in a net negative. Any amount of time saved by not taking the detour will be paid for in blood. That's Pakkun's perspective, so let's hear Naruto's.
Are you crazy? We don't have time to lose time! So what if they're fighting? Big deal! I say full speed ahead!
Yeah, Naruto ain't exactly a tactical genius. They are short on time, so I see where he's coming from, but given all the possible cons to his plan, the juice just simply ain't worth the squeeze. Sakura voices her opinion on the matter after Naruto's call to action.
Oh, grow up, Naruto, will you? Who knows what'll happen if we get caught in the crossfire? What we don't have time for is to get mixed up in someone else's fight, no matter how much you might get a kick out of it.
Naruto tries to defend his position before he's interrupted by Pakkun. After conceding his point, Naruto follows Pakkun and Sakura around the battle. The fight between Shino and Kankuro was originally a 1v1, so obviously they couldn't just change that. However, they couldn't exactly just leave Team Pakkun out of the episode completely, since by its nature as a medium, animated pictures will end up having quote-unquote filler scenes that are still considered canon since they don't contradict the manga. I say that because the anime is allotted a time slot to fill, which takes into account the intro, outro, and commercial breaks. The manga could get away with not showing Team Pakkun and focusing on the action since it's quicker paced and has less time to tell its story. Since the anime can't do that, Studio Pierrot added in that scene and made their decision make sense, which is great. With Team Pakkun out of the way, Shino and Kankuro are left to their 1v1, which lets the audience gauge how powerful each individual is, prevents the fight from being a complete stomp, and stays true to the manga continuity. The only problem I have with Shino and Kankuro's fight is Shino being present for the fight. Yeah, that sounds a bit ridiculous, so let me explain. In episode 70, the moment the Sound Ninja exit the tournament arena, Pakkun instantly detects that there are 9 enemy ninja following them. That means while Pakkun was focusing on the Sand siblings and Sasuke's chakra, he picked up on 9 other chakras as well. If Pakkun could do that, how wasn't he able to pick up on Shino's chakra until he was closing in on Sasuke? It makes even less sense when you take into account that Shino was shown leaving right after Team Pakkun. If Shino were anywhere in the vicinity, how didn't Pakkun smell him? Even if Shino kept his distance, he'd have to evade the Sound Ninja as well. If Shino took the scenic route, Pakkun still should have detected him. I know last episode Pakkun couldn't tell Shino was human, but he was shook when he first detected him pursuing Sasuke. The only logical explanation to all of this is Shino is so skilled and so powerful that he was able to conceal his presence from Pakkun while also traveling faster than Team Pakkun, while also leaving no tracks. If all of that is true, those are some pretty insane feats for Shino. Returning to the anime, Kankurō and Shino have a stare-off before the two prepare themselves for battle. Kankurō whips out his puppet and Shino gives Kankurō one last chance to bug off. Looking back on Kankuro's puppet, its design leaves me with some questions. For instance, why does his puppet have 3 eyes? Another question I have is, what's the purpose in the puppet having feet? From a min-max combat perspective, the feet don't add much. The only time the feet were useful was during the written exam when Kankurō somehow managed to disguise his clone as a sentry and none of the other sentries noticed.
I am a member of the Hidden Leaf Village's Aburame clan. When we fight, no matter how puny our opponent is, we don't mock them. We face them with full strength.
Well, that's not true. During Shino's fight with Zaku, he certainly wasn't facing him with full strength. The man face-tanked Zaku's blast, then proceeded to tell him to surrender instead of giving Zaku an honorable fight.
Temari, put me down.
You sure you're strong enough, Gaara?
Gaara waking up is one of the few scenes that I've come across so far that portrays the characters in a different light across the anime and the manga. So with that said, let's light this candle. I already showed you the anime interpretation, so here's the mangas. Right out of the gate, the tone is completely different. Instead of saying, Temari, put me down, Gaara instead says, let me down, Temari. And in response to that, Temari says, you've come too, Gaara. Before breaking down the differences in dialogue, it's worth noting the positioning of Temari and Gaara in relation to each other. In the manga, Gaara is slightly above Temari, so when he wakes up, he's looking down at her. Having a character literally look down on another character is the bread and butter way of showing superiority. Even though Gaara is injured, he's only alive due to his siblings who are beneath him in both power and in importance to their mission. The manga subtly reminds us of the pecking order. Upon inspecting the dialogue, we can build off of that foundation. Gaara says in a weakened voice, let me down, Temari. While that's still a command, it is by no means aggressive. He doesn't say, let me down, Temari. He says, let me down, Temari. And in response, Temari says, you've come too, Gaara. Temari's response indicates that she's shocked that he's awake. Her response also doesn't challenge Gaara in any way. That's a pretty steep difference if you ask me. Anime Gaara sounds irritated, and in response to that tone, Temari essentially antagonizes him. If you're a perceptive viewer, you likely notice something different about the anime as well. Gaara is no longer above Temari. Instead, the two are side by side as if they were equals. Temari's dialogue supports that stance. That's not to say that she believes she could defeat Gaara. It's to say that given they are both in weakened states, Temari isn't addressing Gaara with the same fear and respect as she usually does. Instead, she's being much more casual with him. Gaara and Temari's interaction, once they've landed, is where the anime and manga split in two separate directions. Let's start off with the anime.
Gaara! There's no telling how long Kankurō can delay Uchiha. Every second counts. If we don't keep moving, the whole plan will fail.
In the anime, Temari is concerned about Gaara due to his injury. That's made evident by the camera zooming in on Gaara's wounded shoulder. That may lead you to believe that the source of Gaara's anguish is his shoulder. However, that's not the case. It's the demon sealed within him that's causing him to wince. Yet, for some reason, Temari is focusing solely on his shoulder and not where he's holding. People tend to hold the area that is giving them pain, and in this case, that is his head, not his shoulder. Temari then doubles down by taking out some healing ointment for Gaara's wound. Temari doesn't get the chance to apply the ointment, however, due to this happening.
Leave me alone, Temari. Go away. You're nothing but a nuisance.
Gaara tells Temari to leave him alone because she's a nuisance. That implies that he doesn't care about her at all, which is consistent with everything we've seen from Gaara up to this point. The dynamic of the anime has been Temari cares about Gaara's well-being, and Gaara doesn't care about hers. Now that we've finished analyzing the anime, it's time to analyze the manga. Upon seeing Gaara wince, Temari doesn't inspect Gaara's injury, nor does she really care about his well-being at all. Instead, she thinks about how the demon has been awake since earlier and how if the demon were to escape now, she'd be incapable of restraining it herself. Her thought process is completely different than her anime counterpart. So the next scene can be interpreted two different ways. Option 1 is Gaara has the same energy towards Temari that he did in the anime. He doesn't care about her at all because she's nothing but a nuisance. However, I'm more in favor of option 2, which is Gaara does care about Temari's well-being. The moment he senses Sasuke, he turns around and says, Temari, get away from here. He doesn't explain himself very well, but he also doesn't tell Temari to leave him alone and to go away because she's nothing but a nuisance. He tells her to get far away. Gaara telling her to get far away means he doesn't want her to get caught up in the action. When she doesn't leave, he then tells her to hurry up and get out of here because she's in the way. He still smacks her off to the side, but it was more an I'm trying to protect you way versus a be gone peasant kind of way. Why did the anime decide to make such a drastic change to the scene? I don't know. But if you do, let me know down in the comments. After Sasuke and Gaara have a brief standoff, we're taken to Kankurō and Shino having a standoff of their own. Kankurō decides to launch the first attack, which comes in the form of a blade. It isn't just any old regular blade though. It's quickly revealed that there is poison on the blade. The addition of the poison makes the fight between Kankurō and Shino even less of a brawl and more of a battle of hacks. By hacks, I'm referring to abilities that negate traditional durability. Kankuro's hacks is his poison since he doesn't need to hit any lethal spots on Shino at all. All he needs to do is get the poison into Shino's bloodstream and it's GG. Shino's hacks is his bugs. They feed on chakra and as shown in his fight against Zaku, they are capable of clogging up ninja tools and rendering them unusable. Due to hacks, the tension of this fight is much higher than Sasuke and Gaara's since it could go either way.
Sasuke Uchiha? Did he get past Kankurō already? No, it was too quick. Someone else must have shown up.
Props to Temari. She could have just assumed that Kankurō got one-tapped and she would not have been wrong for doing so. She already saw what Sasuke did to Gaara, and she's fought Sasuke herself. She doesn't know Sasuke's chakra limitations, so she could assume Sasuke blitzed Kankurō, issued him a GG, and then proceeded on his way. In fact, that is what she initially thinks, both in anime and in the manga. Except in the manga, she doesn't conclude that someone else must have shown up. I think both iterations are equally valid though. In the manga, Temari looks much more beaten. She appears to be barely conscious. In the anime, she looks much more lively. She's clearly worn, but she's much more lively since she's sitting up and there's no blood on her. Temari having more brain power and hope suits the anime adaptation since it's more believable in her current state. After Temari's thoughts, Sasuke calls the Sand Village clowns and says he'll stop whatever they were scheming. Sasuke isn't all business though. He has a personal stake in fighting Gaara. The stake is he wants to find out what exactly Gaara is since he saw the demon inside of Gaara's sand dome. Sasuke's words are shown to have cut deep since Gaara's sand armor begins to crack more as he winces. Temari starts freaking out because Gaara is getting closer and closer to transforming prematurely.
No, not now! Not now! No, Gaara! Remember our mission!
Yeah, I don't know about all of that mission stuff. Temari knows dang well the mission is not Gaara's top priority. I'm not exactly sure what she expected to accomplish by saying that. In fact, she may as well not even be there at this point. I'm pretty sure Gaara already muted her in his mind, so the only person he can hear is Sasuke.
We're so alike, Uchiha. I don't have friends as you have. But they're not what makes you strong. It's your purpose that does it. In that way, we're alike. You. But mine is the stronger purpose. For only by destroying you and all you represent can I even prove that I exist. Only by killing you can I know what life is.
Okay, so that was a lot, but let's talk about it. Gaara opens with, "We're so alike, Uchiha. I don't have friends like you have, but they're not what makes you strong." Hearing Gaara say that made me stop and think, why? Where is that coming from? Him saying that is entirely unfounded. At least right now it is. It'll make more sense in a few episodes, so keep that tidbit in your back pocket. Gaara then finishes stating his worldview to Sasuke, which is, one's purpose determines the value of their life. He knows that Sasuke's purpose lies in him getting stronger to kill someone, while his own purpose is to kill other strong people. In a very skewed way of viewing things, Gaara's worldview makes sense. His whole existence is to be a weapon. The demon was sealed inside of him before before he was even born for the sole purpose of making him stronger. And since Gaara views himself as a weapon, what else is he supposed to do? Not make tea and crumpets, that's for sure. Before moving on, I want to reference the manga. In the manga, the wording makes what Gaara said a little different. You who are strong, who are called Uchiha, who have friends, and have purpose, just like me, can be interpreted much differently than you have friends, but that's not why you're strong. In fact, it'd be very disingenuous to say they're the same sentence. It is quite confusing, but manga Gaara isn't only referring to Sasuke when he states his parameters. He does say, by killing you, I'll erase all of that. But that's only because Sasuke fulfills the parameters he listed. My goal from here on out is to tell the story and analyze it as if I were viewing it for the first time, so I'm aiming to avoid spoilers. With that said, if you disagree with me, you'll see what I mean in the upcoming episodes. Bouncing back to the anime, Gaara's flashback comes after his monologue, which gives it a different significance plot-wise. The difference being, anime Gaara recalls him learning Sasuke's purpose via the look in his eyes, which sends him into a frenzy. Manga Gaara, on the other hand, recalls the flashback after Sasuke says he wants to see what Gaara really is. In said flashback, Gaara asks Sasuke his motive for seeking strength. Sasuke doesn't answer, which leads to Gaara learning Sasuke's purpose from the look in his eyes. After the flashback ends, Gaara has his monologue, then convulses. The flow the manga has is better in my opinion because Gaara's flashback fuels his monologue versus his monologue being the catalyst for him to remember why he had the monologue in the first place. If that sounded confusing, that's because it is. Continuing with the episode, Gaara's mental has been fracturing the entire time as demonstrated by his sand armor cracking. Finally, at his breaking point, Gaara loses control over the demon and is no longer able to restrain it. As he lashes side to side, the demon's roaring can be heard in the background. Naturally, Sasuke has absolutely no idea what the hell is happening since he's never seen anything like this before. Since he had his Sharingan out when he first saw the demon and it was concealed by Gaara's dome, he likely only saw a shadow and its chakra, so he wasn't exactly sure what he saw. This time, the situation is completely different. There's no mistaking what he's seeing.
Substitution.
That's what I'm saying, Shino. Even though the substitution jutsu is an E-rank technique, Kankurō performing the substitution jutsu on his puppet without Shino noticing is quite impressive. In order to pull that off, Kankurō likely used his substitution jutsu when Shino was hopping into the tree. Due to Shino's lack of perception, Crow, Kankuro's puppet, gets the drop on him.
That did it.
Naruto battles are freaking hilarious sometimes. In other anime, like say Dragon Ball, the characters would gauge each other's power by not fighting at full strength and only powering up when absolutely necessary. But in Naruto, this is what you get: substitution and shadow clones.
Those damn bugs again. You made a clone out of bugs, then snuck up behind me. Not too bad.
Immediately after Kankurō finished giving Shino his props, Shino goes on to explain how he easily got around Kankuro's defenses. In universe, there isn't a good reason for Shino to explain the mechanics to Kankurō since Kankurō didn't ask. Plus, all Shino is doing is giving Kankurō time to recover. Shino literally stops combat to say this.
I can tell from your jutsu that your strength is long-range attacks, not close combat. Furthermore, you have to focus all of your chakra and attention on manipulating that puppet of yours. And that, of course, leaves an opening in your defenses.
The only reason why Shino does that is for the audience's sake. I guess it does establish a weakness that Shino could potentially exploit later on, but it comes at the cost of Shino not exploiting that very weakness now. which grants Kankurō the opportunity to cover his weakness up. So unless Shino is playing 4D chess, he just missed his chance for a flawless victory. In fact,
you haven't seen half of what Crow can do. So far, he's been playing nice. Huh?
Poison smoke bomb!
Suddenly, this battle that could have gone either way is now heavily leaning in Kankuro's favor. For those who may be thinking, why didn't Shino just dodge? It's not fair to harp on Shino for blocking the grenade with his bugs since the projectile flew at him so fast. By the time he recognized there was a projectile, it was already right on top of him, so dodging wasn't exactly an option.
Listen, everyone, even if the enemy shinobi do manage to get up here, don't panic. Just quickly get into the hidden chamber.
I get where Iruka is coming from, and that's certainly the best thing he could say given the current situation, but in practice, his advice is absolute rubbish. They may be academy students, which on paper sets them apart from other children emotionally, but they are still children. Konohamaru is 8 years old. Is he really expected to maintain his composure in the advent one or multiple enemy shinobi show up trying to kill him? I think not. Just before the kids make it inside the next building, Konohamaru is hit by a falling pebble.
Lord Hokage's face is beginning to crack.
That's ominous.
Grandpa.
Upon looking up, he and the others realize Hiruzen's stone face is cracking due to the pressure of battle. Moagi doesn't seem to think too much of it, but Iruka and Konohamaru have the sixth sense to know that Hiruzen's face cracking isn't a coincidence. Studio Parrot also knows it isn't a coincidence and uses the zoom in on Hiruzen's face to transition us back to his and Orochimaru's tug of war. The first thing we're shown is how fatigued both of the combatants are. In a wider shot, we're shown Enma as well, but he looks like he's just chilling, to be honest, which is odd now that I think about it. Those snakes should at the very least be cutting off blood flow and making him go numb. There also appears to be a snake around his neck, which y'all know what that means, right? To put it mildly, Enma should definitely be feeling pretty numb right now.
To have come this far, to have his cursed soul in my hands and not have the strength to finish it.
Hiruzen then continues on to blame his age for the reason he isn't strong enough to finish off Orochimaru. It's essentially confirmed by Orochimaru when he co-signs the notion that a younger Hiruzen would likely have been able to seal his soul. Soon after, Enma reminds Hiruzen that it's now or never, that if he fails here, the Leaf Village is doomed. Hiruzen and Orochimaru continue their tug of war before we're taken back to Gaara v Sasuke. Something I never noticed before is how flexible Gaara's chainmail is. Gaara's arm is nowhere near the size of his sand arm, yet the chainmail is still perfectly intact. Now that right there is a high quality chainmail. It reminds me of the Saiyan's armor from Dragon Ball Z. After Gaara finishes transforming, he immediately lunges at Sasuke. Sasuke is so out of it that he doesn't even activate his Sharingan and almost dies for that mistake. It's made evident that this Gaara is exponentially stronger than his tournament counterpart. He absolutely brutalizes the environment by throwing his weight around a little bit. It's then when Sasuke realizes,
Looks like I may not finish this before you catch up with me after all. Shino.
Which serves as an excellent transition back to Kankurō and Shino's fight. The manga took a slightly different approach by making Sasuke get humbled a little earlier. In the manga, Sasuke didn't need to see Gaara's power before coming to the realization that he was screwed. The moment he saw Gaara transform, he knew he was in for a tough fight. Jumping back to the Kankurō v Shino fight, we're shown Shino being ravaged by the poison. Kankurō sees how weakened Shino has become and goes for the finishing blow.
What?
This is such a great matchup. Kishimoto saving their fight for now was certainly the right call. If Shino and Kankurō fought in the tournament arena, not only would it have been a completely different fight, but it would have been a boring one too. The terrain of the tournament arena isn't suited for the type of combatants Shino and Kankuro are. They both would have been forced into fighting head-on since there wouldn't be an abundance of trees to hide in.
More bugs? He shouldn't even be moving with that poison in him.
If what Kankurō is saying is true, that must mean Shino has some sort of enhanced poison resistance, whether it be from training, his bugs, or some random gene he was born with. After Kankurō notices some leaves fall, it's revealed that Shino is standing on the opposite side of the branch with his bugs sent out doing something. Kankurō attempts to finish Shino off once again when he comes to the realization that he can't move his puppet. It's then we see Shino's bugs crawling out of the joints and Kankuro's puppet. Considering Kankurō goes, he must be able to see them too, despite how small they are and how far away he is. This is yet another example of Ninja having impeccable eyesight. We saw this from Guy in episode 68.
So that's what he was after. He wanted me to attack so he could get his creepy crawlies to infest Crow's body.
I don't have anything to say about Kankuro's theory since he's obviously on the money. What I do want to talk about is how the guy really just said creepy crawlies instead of bugs. Actually, I lied. I do have something to say about Kankuro's theory. I like how in the manga, Kankurō doesn't see the bugs. Instead of him getting a perception feat, he gets an intelligence one instead. Him deducing what happened versus seeing it is more impressive in my book.
Now they're going after my chakra puppet strings. Why? Right. I forgot these things eat chakra.
I'm at a bit of an impasse here now. I literally just said how I like the manga's depiction of Kankurō better due to him sounding more intelligent and formidable. But after that last clip, I think anime Kankuro's reactions are just as good as the manga, the only difference being in their flavor. In the anime, Kankurō is still intelligent, but his thought process is more akin to a child's. He also isn't nearly as stoic as his manga counterpart. The anime's version of Kankurō is just as good when taking into account the difference in mediums. Once again, the anime is geared towards kids, so having Kankurō be more kid-like makes perfect sense. The more I analyze the manga and the anime side by side, the greater the appreciation I gain for the series as a whole and for the production studios that adapt the mangas. Seeing that the bugs are going to reveal his position, Kankurō severs the chakra strings in order to prevent his location from being discovered. To Shino's surprise, Kankurō is capable of instantly reattaching his chakra strings to Crow, which leaves him in an extremely vulnerable position. Due to him being immobilized, Shino is unable to dodge Crow's needle and dies. Just kidding. For some reason, if a puppet master's chakra threads are severed, the puppet instantaneously halts all movement. The winner of the most plot armor in the episode goes to Shino Aburame. Shino dies 100% of the time if the laws of the Naruto universe remain consistent. Inertia exists in Naruto. Crow's head was flying straight at Shino but appeared to have hit a wall before gravity kicked in and pulled the puppet down. Poison or no poison, that needle should have flown full force straight into Shino's forehead. Shino didn't even try to dodge or send his bugs out to protect him either, so he somehow knew inertia would stop working for a few seconds.
But how? I don't get it! I was sure to cut the strings before they could find me!
And there's your explanation. You were so worried about them approaching from the front that you failed to observe the swarm of beetles coming at you from behind.
So in essence, Shino defeated Kankurō in a very similar way to Zaku. He plugged his ninja tool, then flanked him with an army of beetles. I think I said this before, but Zaku was literally just a tutorial boss and Kankurō is the actual boss.
When I swung at you earlier, I only pretended to miss. What I really wanted was to plant a beetle on your headband.
Well, would you look at that? It turns out Shino didn't all-in Kankurō right there for a reason. He knew that he wouldn't have been able to take him down right then and there. Even if he tried to stab Kankurō with a kunai, Kankurō still would have dodged it. If Shino threw the kunai while Kankurō was in the air, he likely would have blocked it with his own. Then Shino wouldn't have had an ace in the hole. The only issue I have with Shino's plan is him standing there and getting hit by the poison.
But that doesn't explain where the rest of them came from!
Continuing with his 200 IQ plan reveal, Shino responds to Kankurō by saying he hates to explain the same thing twice. That jogs Kankuro's memory from just before he and Shino began fighting. He remembers the explanation that Shino gave to Sasuke. It's then revealed that the bug Shino planted onto Kankurō was a female beetle. I don't think it was the same one he planted on Sasuke, since he's never shown retrieving it and Sasuke doesn't flick the beetle off of him. It would also make sense for Sasuke to leave the beetle on so Shino could catch up with him later. Otherwise, Shino wouldn't be able to track him and he would just be kinda jumping randomly. After wrapping up his explanation, Kankurō falls to the ground while being consumed by the bugs. At the same time, the effects of the poison become too much for Shino to handle and he finally succumbs to it, but not before apologizing to Sasuke for not being able to reinforce him.
The poison, it spread through my whole body. Looks like I may not make it after all. Sasuke Uchiha.
Having Shino apologize to Sasuke as well, despite neither of them being able to hear each other's words, is a fantastic way of showing the bond that the leaf so proudly proclaims. I have a proclamation of my own to make. It's to like the video since you very clearly enjoyed it. Liking the video will help spread it out across the shinobi world, which will draw in new warriors to increase the strength of our village. I'll see you all in the next video. Deuces.